Chapter 1. The love-obsessed bestie, my best friend, the school beauty, was sobbing that her boyfriend had cheated on her. I pleaded with her to break up with him. She agreed on the spot, only to get back together with him in less than 3 days. Her boyfriend, blaming me for meddling, disfigured me with a bottle of sulfuric acid. My best friend said I deserved it. Why did I have to be so nosy? Later, she stole my childhood friend, who was disgusted by my scars, and became a social media star with millions of followers by playing the victim online. As for me, I failed my college entrance exams. After graduating from community college, I was hunted down by her now ex-con boyfriend and abused to death. When I opened my eyes again, I was back before it all happened. 1. His phone was off all night. I looked everywhere for him, and then I saw him kissing some girl right outside his house. Penelope Vance crushed the empty beer can in her hand, her eyes red from crying. I stared blankly at her face until she leaned on my shoulder, sobbing, "Rory, what should I do?" The strong smell of alcohol on her made me frown. In my last life, Penelope had asked me the very same question. She had cried to me about her cheating boyfriend, listing every single one of his unbearable flaws. We had known each other for 7 years, from the 6th grade to our senior year of high school. We were supposed to be the closest of friends. This wasn't the first time she had complained to me about him, but despite their numerous breakups and makeups, she never took my advice to heart. Still, I pitied her for being treated this way and patiently urged her to leave him. She promised she wouldn't be weak this time. She took sick leave from school and stayed at my house for several days. Just when I thought she had finally made up her mind, she posted a picture on her social media of her and her boyfriend holding hands, their fingers forming a heart. The caption read, "Some people just can't stand to see you happier than them." Before I could even ask her what that post meant, her boyfriend threw a full bottle of sulfuric acid in my face. The high-concentration acid burned my corneas and melted half of my face. Disfigured and blind, all I got from Penelope was a cold, "You deserved it. Why did you have to be so nosy?" Only later did I find out that she had constantly told her boyfriend that I was bad-mouthing him, trying to force her to break up with him. Her boyfriend eventually went to prison, and they finally had their dramatic breakup. She didn't grieve for long. She turned around and stole my childhood friend, who was repulsed by my disfigurement, and used her sob story to become an influencer with millions of followers. Meanwhile, I failed my college entrance exams. After graduating from community college, I was hunted down by her boyfriend upon his release and abused to death. Aurora Sterling, maybe I should just break up with him. Penelope suddenly looked up, her tear-filled eyes meeting mine. She looked so serious, so sincere. I looked back at her. She had a beautiful face, acknowledged by everyone as the school beauty. Even her tears were pitifully beautiful, making people want to protect her. But this time, my heart was completely unmoved. I managed a faint smile. "Don't think like that. You two can't break up." Penelope seemed surprised by my response. In the past, I would have tirelessly analyzed all the reasons they weren't right for each other, telling her she needed to take responsibility for her own life. But now I was telling her not to break up. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, and she asked almost instinctively, "Why not? He's a total scumbag," so she knew he was a scumbag all along. I used to think it was such a waste, that someone as smart and beautiful as her shouldn't be dragged down by a guy like that. It wasn't until I had died once that I realized Penelope and that scumbag were a match made in heaven. Of course, I had to respect that, bless it, and hope they stayed locked together forever. I pushed her off my shoulder. "I think he's a decent guy. The midterm mock exams are next week. I need to go home and study." In my last life, Penelope had dragged me into her drama from morning till night, complaining about her boyfriend and breaking down into hysterical fits in the middle of the night, leaving me physically and mentally exhausted. As a result, I bombed the mock exams, had a mental breakdown, and my grades plummeted. Caught off guard by my push, Penelope staggered and fell off the stool. She struggled to her feet, her face flushed with anger. "Aurora Sterling, why are you defending him? Are you even my best friend anymore?" "Best friend? The kind that gets me disfigured and killed." I scoffed and walked away without looking back. As soon as I got home, I pulled out all my textbooks from freshman to senior year and started reviewing everything from the beginning. After years of community college, I had forgotten most of what I'd learned in high school. With less than a week to go, I had to study every second I could. I pulled an all-nighter doing practice problems. The next day, before the sun was up, I was on my way to school with a heavy backpack. Northwood High allowed students to be either boarders or day students. Penelope disliked the dorm environment, and since my childhood friend, Julian Thorne, was also a day student, I had opted to commute with them. But my house was far from school, and the crowded bus ride took at least 50 minutes each way. For a high school senior, every minute was precious. The first thing I did when I got to school was ask my homeroom teacher for a dorm application. As I was filling it out, Julian Thorne tapped on my desk. He was the childhood friend I grew up with and my deskmate for all 3 years of high school. With his legs crossed and a smug grin on his face, he asked, "Did you and Penny have a fight?" I kept filling out the form, giving him a non-committal nope. Penny was wasted last night. She called me in the middle of the night to pick her up. His smile faded. "I'm not trying to criticize you, but how could you just leave a drunk girl like her on the street? That's so dangerous." I stopped writing and glanced at him. "Did I force her to drink?" Julian's mouth opened. "No, but what?" I cut him off. "I'm not her mother. I have no legal obligation to look after her." Everyone around us knew I had a crush on Julian. I had always followed his lead without question. This was the first time I had ever talked back to him. Julian's face turned red. He stood there, stunned, for a long moment before finally sputtering. "Penny was right. You really have changed." 3. I didn't know what kind of person I was in Penelope's and Julian's eyes. But in every moment I spent with them, I had been sincere. They just weren't worth it, especially Julian. He had always been at the bottom of the class, while I was the straightest student in the eyes of teachers and parents, always ranking first in the grade. High school class placements were based on academic performance. With my grades, I should have been in the honors class. But just because Julian had said, "Rory, it would be great if we could be in the same class," I deliberately left several major questions blank on the placement test. I was assigned to the regular class, the one that gave all the teachers a headache, and became his deskmate. It was only after I was disfigured that I learned the real reason he wanted to be in the same class, so he could easily cheat off my answers during exams. Even now, I can still remember the look of utter disgust and revulsion in his eyes when he saw my acid-burned face. He didn't even bother to pretend. Chapter 2. The heartless childhood friend. Even so, I still made excuses for him. I thought, my face is so horribly burned, I can't even look in the mirror myself. It's normal for him to be scared. That self-deception finally shattered, along with my pride, when Julian and Penelope officially announced they were together. It was probably at that moment that I finally understood. Julian had known I liked him all along. He neither rejected nor accepted me, simply because back then, I was still useful to him. After I filled out the dorm application and handed it to my homeroom teacher, I also mentioned that I wanted to change seats. The teacher was a bit surprised, but didn't press for details. After the mock exams, the school will reassign classes based on grades. Traditionally, it would take at least a month after the mock exam results were out for classes to be reassigned. I couldn't stand sitting next to Julian for another day. Julian is too distracting. He's always secretly playing games on his phone in class, and it's seriously affecting my studies. The teacher was silent for a long time before finally relenting. "Where do you want to move?" The seats in our class were arranged in study groups, and I was the leader of mine. Changing seats on short notice would disrupt the group, and the other students probably wouldn't be happy. I thought for a moment. With Sebastian Croft. Sebastian Croft was an anomaly in the regular class. He sat alone in the last row by the window, without a deskmate or a study group. He was always sleeping in class and would turn in blank exam papers, yet the teachers never called his parents. Once, after school, I saw Sebastian with some thugs from off campus. I watched as those usually arrogant thugs respectfully called him Brother Seb. From then on, I kept my distance from Sebastian, afraid of getting into trouble. When I returned to the classroom, Julian had just come back from playing basketball on the court. Seemingly trying to ease the tension between us, he pushed a bottle of lime-flavored Gatorade in front of me. "Here, your favorite." I gave him a half smile. "I don't like Gatorade." The person who loved sports drinks was Penelope. It took Julian a moment to realize his mistake. He scratched his head. I must have remembered wrong. I picked up the stack of textbooks on my desk and slung my heavy backpack over my other shoulder, heading towards Sebastian's seat. Julian followed me. "Rory, where are you going?" I didn't answer him. I just placed my textbooks on the empty seat next to Sebastian. Julian was used to getting his way and practically owned the classroom. But for some reason, he seemed to be in awe of Sebastian. Seeing me sit next to him, he didn't dare to follow any further. Just then, someone called his name from the classroom door. "Julian Thorne, the homeroom teacher wants to see you in the office." Julian let out a sigh of relief and left the classroom. After he was gone, Sebastian slowly lifted his head. I couldn't help but feel nervous. But Sebastian only glanced at me before leaning down to sleep again. Julian returned before class started. His spare phone, which he used for gaming, had been confiscated by the teacher. He glared at me with fury in his eyes. I paid him no mind and continued to bury my head in my studies. The next time I saw Penelope was the day before the mock exams. Her pretty face was bruised, her eyes were swollen, and a small patch of hair was missing from her forehead. She looked utterly wretched. Before I could ask, she blurted out, "Rory, that animal hit me, he actually hit me. I want to break up, but he won't let me. He even said he'd kill me." She pleaded with me, crying, "I'm so scared. I should have listened to you and broken up with him sooner. I want to hide at your place for a few days." I shrugged. "My house isn't a police station. If you come to me, I'll be scared too." My detached attitude must have infuriated her. She stared at me, her eyes burning. "If you don't help me, I'll go to Julian Thorne." Seeing my silence, Penelope thought she had found my weakness, and a smirk played on her lips. "Rory, you wouldn't want me to bother you." I raised an eyebrow. "You can go to whoever you want. Just please stop bothering me." 5 Penelope missed the mock exams. So did Julian. He was fiercely protective. The moment he heard Penelope had been beaten, he stormed over to the neighboring vocational school without a second thought. However, Penelope's boyfriend was not only the top dog at the vocational school, but also a notorious gang leader in the area. Julian didn't stand a chance. He ended up with the tendons in his right hand, severed by the boyfriend's fruit knife. Since her boyfriend was a minor, he only had to pay the medical bills, and the matter was dropped. When my mom heard Julian was injured, she insisted on dragging me to the hospital to visit him. In the hospital room, Julian lay pale on the bed, but there was a faint smile on his face. His parents were away on a business trip and couldn't get back in time. Penelope's mother seized the opportunity to come and take care of him personally. The way Mrs. Vance looked at Julian, it was as if she were looking at her own son-in-law, completely satisfied. His act of defending Penelope had moved her deeply. She peeled an apple while chatting with Julian. "Our Penny is just too naive. She's always been a good girl and so pretty. That's why these thugs take advantage of her." Julian smiled. "Don't worry, Mrs. Vance. As long as I'm with Penny, no one can bully her." Mrs. Vance didn't know Penelope had a boyfriend, but Julian did. Even with his hand mangled, he was carefully protecting her secret. I guess that's what you call true love. It took Julian a while to notice my mother and me. His attitude turned cold as he greeted her with a simple "Auntie." My mom, holding a thermos and a bag of tea-steeped eggs, looked at his freshly operated wrist with pity. "How did you get hurt so badly?" Mrs. Vance snatched the thermos and eggs from my mom's hands. Opening the thermos, her smile turned mocking. "Who brings plain broth and hard-boiled eggs to visit a patient?" Chapter 3, The Demons Return. My mother's face flushed. She explained, "He can't have anything greasy right after surgery." And Julian always loved my tea-steeped eggs. My mom had prepared them the day before, using the high-quality tea leaves she'd been saving for years and was reluctant to drink herself. Julian just watched my mother's embarrassment, making no effort to smooth things over. I reached out and took back the thermos and eggs from Mrs. Vance. "You've got it wrong. This is the breakfast my mom made for me." I started eating the broth and eggs right in front of Julian. The fragrant aroma of the tea-steeped eggs filled the room. He stared at the egg in my hand and swallowed hard. His stomach chose that moment to let out a loud grumble. Mrs. Vance had no experience caring for patients. She had been eating and drinking herself, completely forgetting that Julian hadn't had a meal yet. He licked his lips and whispered, "If you can't finish, you can leave a couple of those eggs for me." I laughed and put the remaining eggs back in the bag. Who brings a patient plain broth and hard-boiled eggs? 6. In the end, Julian didn't get a single bite of my mother's tea-steeped eggs. As we were leaving the hospital, I ran into a frantic-looking Penelope at the end of the third-floor corridor. She was clutching a lab report and frantically tapping on her phone, seemingly texting someone. I glanced up at the sign in the corridor, obstetrics and gynecology, no men allowed, and had a sinking feeling. 3 days later, Penelope reappeared at school. The bruises on her face had mostly healed. A few noticeable scratches were covered with cartoon band-aids, and she had a new hairstyle to hide the missing patch of hair on her forehead. She looked the same as always, yet there was something inexplicably odd about her. Penelope stopped eating in the cafeteria, bringing her own light meals every day. Occasionally, she would suddenly cover her mouth and rush out of the classroom. Citing her studies, she stopped participating in all school sports. Before, gym class had been her favorite. The charade ended when Penelope fainted in class and was rushed to the hospital. Her mother stormed into the school, waving a positive pregnancy test, and screamed at our homeroom teacher, "My daughter is such a good girl, how could she possibly be pregnant? Your school must take full responsibility." The commotion made her pregnancy common knowledge throughout the entire school. When Penelope found out what her mother had done, she refused to go back to school and ended up dropping out. She came back to the regular class one last time to pack her things after submitting her withdrawal form. Julian was by her side, carrying her backpack with his uninjured hand. Penelope walked straight up to me, a sarcastic smile on her lips. "Aurora Sterling, are you satisfied now?" I had no idea why she would ask me that. After all, I wasn't the one who encouraged her to date, I wasn't the one who got her pregnant, and I certainly wasn't the one who broadcasted her pregnancy to the entire school. But Penelope blamed it all on me, as if only by making me the villain could she continue to live with a clear conscience. I was holding my mock exam results and didn't even bother to look up at her. Seeing my indifference, Penelope gritted her teeth in frustration. "There's one more thing I forgot to tell you." She lifted her chin and, in front of the whole class, took Julian's hand. "Julian and I are together now." 7. Julian's family was well off. His father was a renowned local surgeon, and his mother ran an entertainment company. They had owned multiple properties in the expensive heart of the city for over a decade. In contrast, both Penelope's family and mine were middle-class comfortable, but not wealthy. My dad and Julian's dad were childhood friends, so they had jokingly arranged our marriage before we were even born. Julian was an only child, and his parents doted on me as if I were their own daughter. I had naturally assumed that Julian and I would end up together when we grew up. In my last life, when I heard that Julian and Penelope were together, it felt like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. But now, I felt nothing. I even found it a little amusing. So the boy I had a crush on my entire youth was nothing more than a pathetic simp and a fall guy. Before leaving, Julian didn't forget to warn me, "Aurora Sterling, the baby in Penny's belly is mine. You'd better not say anything stupid in front of my parents," I scoffed. "Get over yourself. Your business has nothing to do with me." Soon after, the school reassigned classes based on the mock exam results. My round-the-clock studying paid off. Although I still didn't make it into the honors class, I at least got out of the regular class. But even after changing classes, my deskmate was still Sebastian Croft. He usually turned in blank exams, but for some reason, he had a change of heart this time and actually answered the questions. He scraped by with a passing grade and was assigned to the second-tier class, landing right next to me as my deskmate once again. I threw myself into my studies, my days a monotonous cycle of practice tests, memorizing formulas, and learning vocabulary. But I didn't find it dull. I knew a bright future awaited me. My dream school was the nationally renowned Tsinghua Peking University. I didn't get the chance in my past life, so I was determined to fight for my dream in this one. Boarding students could go home once a week. I squeezed every available moment for studying, even memorizing phrases on the bus ride home. There were no evening classes on Fridays, but in winter it got dark early. By 6 p.m., the streets were already pitch black. As I was walking, I suddenly felt that something was wrong. A man in a hat was following me. He had been tailing me from the school gate all the way to the bus stop. This stop was only for the number 25 bus, and because of its remote location, very few people used it. The man behind me was acting suspiciously. He walked when I walked, stopped when I stopped. I immediately became alert, took out my phone, and pretended to take a selfie, using the front camera to capture the man's face behind me. I stared at the man's face in the photo, a cold sweat breaking out on my back. He was standing behind a bus stop advertisement, his hands in his pockets, with the top of a glass bottle sticking out. I would recognize him even if he were reduced to ashes. It was Penelope's thug boyfriend, Ronan Cross, the demon who had thrown acid on me, disfigured and blinded me, and then, after getting out of prison, had abused me to death. He had ruined my life, and now he was back for more. Ronan looked around. Seeing no one, he pulled his baseball cap lower. He took the bottle of acid out of his pocket and started walking towards me. Chapter 4. Whispers and Rumors 8. I froze, my hands and feet turning to ice. Painful memories from my past life crashed over me like a tidal wave. The bottle in Ronan's hand contained high-concentration sulfuric acid. The moment the liquid touched skin, it felt like being sliced open with a sharp blade. It was a searing pain that life itself could not bear. I had thought that by staying out of Penelope's business with him, I could avoid the tragic fate of my previous life. But now, it seemed I had been too naive. Ronan was heading straight for me. I had no time to think. My fingers flew across my phone screen, dialing a number. The phone rang a few times and was quickly answered. Clinging to it like a lifeline, I said in a trembling voice, "Sebastian, didn't you say you'd wait for me at the number 25 bus stop? Where are you?" There was a 3-second silence on the other end, followed by Sebastian's lazy voice. "Almost there." I remembered the local thugs calling Sebastian Brother Seb, so Ronan probably knew who he was. Sure enough, upon hearing Sebastian's name, Ronan stopped in his tracks. I didn't dare hang up, terrified that Ronan would suddenly snap and attack me. Even with my mind in chaos, I acted on pure survival instinct, continuing to ramble into the phone. Penelope is hopeless. Her boyfriend was so good to her, and she just broke up with him to be with Julian Thorne. And Julian is a jerk too, knowing full well she was pregnant with her boyfriend's child and still sticking his nose in it. Those two are so heartless. I hope they get what's coming to them. Ronan toyed with the acid bottle, glancing at me from the corner of his eye. I was trying my best to make my position clear. I had no idea if he believed me. It wasn't until Sebastian appeared in my line of sight that Ronan put the acid bottle back in his pocket and quickly walked away. My legs went weak. I gasped for air, my body sliding down against the advertisement board. My heart was pounding in my ears. Sebastian had a lollipop in his mouth, a small white stick protruding from his lips. He didn't speak, waiting until I had calmed down before asking, "How do you have my number?" We had been deskmates for nearly 2 months, but we never talked. He slept, and I studied. Later, when the school was holding a parent-teacher conference, I was helping the homeroom teacher organize student files and happened to see Sebastian's number. Thankfully, I have a good memory. Otherwise, I might not have made it out of this alive. I looked at his long shadow, stretched out by the dim yellow light. No one, not the teachers and students at school, nor the thugs outside, dared to mess with Sebastian. I didn't know what his story was, but if he could protect me, I wouldn't have to live in constant fear of Ronan throwing acid on me. I pushed myself up, using the ad board for support, and gathered the courage to look at him. I can tutor you, help you improve your grades. Could you walk me home on Fridays after school?" Sebastian raised an eyebrow, a half smile on his face. "And here I thought you were about to confess your feelings." 9. Sebastian didn't say yes, but he didn't say no either. I shamelessly took his silence as a yes. When I got home, I organized all my high school notes, highlighting the key points, and made a copy for Sebastian. The next day at school, I eagerly placed the notebook on his desk. Sebastian glanced at it once before casually tossing it into his desk drawer. In the days that followed, I started initiating conversations with him. For this problem, besides the method the teacher taught, there's a much simpler way to solve it. Let me show you. The lunch in the cafeteria was really good today, but the server was so stingy, her hand was shaking the whole time she was scooping the rice. "What college do you want to go to?" "I'm aiming for Tsinghua Peking University." "What flavor is that lollipop you're eating?" "I like the cola-flavored ones." Despite my constant attempts to start a conversation, Sebastian rarely responded. Most of the time, I was just talking to myself. After a while, rumors started spreading around the class that I was pursuing Sebastian. Julian couldn't stand it and confronted me. He cornered me in a corner of the athletic field, frowning as he warned, "Aurora Sterling, don't mess with Sebastian Croft. His family background is not something you can just latch onto. I'm only telling you this because you and Penny used to be friends." I just smiled. Oh, seeing my dismissive attitude, Julian blew up. "So ungrateful, fine. Do whatever you want, just don't come crying to me later." When I got back to the classroom, there were several boxes of chocolates and love letters on my desk. This was nothing new. I pushed the chocolates onto Sebastian's desk and threw the letters in the trash. When you have your first crush, you're always worried about not looking good enough in front of them. A few years ago, on Penelope's advice, I got heavy, straight bangs that covered my eyebrows and half of my eyes. I also had 2 long strands of hair framing my face, like catfish whiskers, to shape my face. I had that hairstyle all through middle and high school. It wasn't until recently that I started pinning it back with black clips, revealing my actual face. I stopped slouching, and after eating a healthier diet, the few pimples on my forehead cleared up. My skin was now so smooth it looked like you could squeeze water from it. As a result, more and more boys started pursuing me, but I had no interest in dating. My only goal was to get into Tsinghua Peking University. Before school ended on Friday, my homeroom teacher called me to her office. I thought it was about the rumors of me pursuing Sebastian and was ready to explain, but instead, she asked, "There's a city-wide math competition. Are you interested in participating? If I could pass the preliminary round, make it to the national finals, and place in the top 60, I would get guaranteed admission to Tsinghua Peking University." Northwood High only had 5 spots for the competition, and they usually went to the top 5 students in the honors class. Although my grades were excellent, I hadn't made it into the honors class after the mock exams. Technically, I shouldn't have had a chance to participate. I took the registration form, feeling dizzy with excitement. As I walked out of the school gate, I saw Sebastian. I greeted him naturally. "You haven't left yet?" Sebastian grunted and fell into step behind me. It took me a moment to realize that Sebastian was waiting for me. He was going to walk me home. 10. My knowledge of Sebastian was limited. I didn't know what Julian meant by Sebastian's family background. All I knew was that he liked sweets, especially lollipops. When we reached my apartment complex, I told Sebastian to wait and ran to the corner store, where I bought a whole tub of lollipops. I held the tub with both hands and offered it to him, my face flushing. "Thank you for walking me home." Sebastian didn't take the tub, but he did pluck a single cola-flavored lollipop from it. Watching his retreating back, my heart started beating uncontrollably fast. I touched my hot cheeks, looked down at the tub of lollipops in my hands, and turned towards home. That night, while I was working on a math practice test, I suddenly got a call from Julian. His voice was low. "Aurora Sterling, I'm downstairs. Come down." I glanced at the clock. It was 11 p.m. If you have something to say, just say it over the phone. Julian's voice turned angry. "What did you say to my parents?" He spat, "Even if you badmouth Penny to them, I will never, ever like you." Chapter 5. The kidnapping, hearing it was about that again, I hung up and blocked his number. By the time I finished the practice test, it was already 1 in the morning. I went to the window, pulled back the curtains, and glanced downstairs. Julian was gone. My phone vibrated twice. It was a message from Penelope. "Why are you doing this to us? If anything happens to Julian, I will never forgive you." My heart skipped a beat. Remembering the anger in Julian's voice on the phone, I threw on a jacket and rushed downstairs. I dialed Penelope's number as I ran out of the apartment complex. She didn't answer. Instead, on the street outside, I ran right into Ronan Cross, who had been waiting for me. He dangled a pink phone in his hand and grinned at me. "Just waiting for you." Ronan knocked me out and took me to a nearby abandoned factory. When I woke up, I saw Julian tied up like a dumpling, just like me. Penelope was there too, though she was much more comfortable, sitting on a brown leather sofa. Ronan stood behind the sofa, one hand resting on Penelope's shoulder. "Now that everyone's here, let's settle this." In his other hand, he held the bottle of sulfuric acid. "Penny, my dear, why don't you tell me who was it that kept trying to break us up, who forced you to leave me?" I glanced at the cold sweat on Julian's face and pieced together what had happened. News of Julian and Penelope had reached his parents. He assumed I had snitched to them and came to my apartment to confront me. He didn't expect Ronan to be following him. Ronan had initially planned to use Julian to lure me out, but I hadn't come downstairs. So, he kidnapped Julian first, then threatened Penelope to meet him and used her phone to text me, luring me out of my apartment. The plan was full of holes, but my anxiety had clouded my judgment. Julian's parents had always been incredibly kind to me, and Julian was their only son. I was worried he would do something stupid for Penelope. I never thought I would walk right into Ronan's trap. I sighed. I saw Penelope's trembling hand point at me. It was her. Aurora Sterling forced me to break up with you, 11. I had expected Penelope to say that. She would never want her simp of a fall guy, Julian, to get hurt. After all, Julian's family was very rich. I watched as Ronan unscrewed the cap of the acid bottle and walked towards me, step by step. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I forced myself to sit up straight. While activating my watch's emergency alert function, I tried to buy time. Ronan, I have an interesting recording here. Want to hear it? Ronan paused, a curious smile on his face. Is it an audio of you and Sebastian hooking up? I ignored his vulgar joke and motioned for him to play the recording on my phone. A woman's crying voice filled the air. Rory, what should I do? Don't think like that. You two can't break up. Why not? He's a total scumbag. I think he's a decent guy. The midterm mock exams are next week. I need to go home and study. Aurora Sterling, why are you defending him? Are you even my best friend anymore? The smile on Ronan's face slowly vanished. He recognized the voices as Penelope and me. In a fit of rage, he threw my phone across the room. I had been prepared. That day Penelope came to me drunk and crying, I had quietly turned on my phone's voice recorder and captured every word she said. I never thought it would come in handy like this. Ronan strode back to the sofa and slapped Penelope across the face. Bitch! The slap landed right on her nose. With a scream, blood gushed out. Ronan grabbed her by the neck. You blamed everything on Aurora Sterling to protect your precious little lover, didn't you? Penelope gasped for air, tears of pain streaming down her face as she shook her head frantically. No, that's not it. Seeing her in pain, Julian roared, Let her go. What kind of man hurts a woman? Ronan sneered and released his grip. What a tragic couple. Still protecting each other even when you're about to die. He walked over to Julian and poured the entire bottle of acid over his head. The abandoned factory echoed with blood-curdling screams. Julian writhed on the ground like a worm. The air filled with the pungent smell of acid mixed with the thick stench of blood, making me want to vomit. Penelope screamed again, but after a few cries, Ronan grabbed her by the hair and stuffed a dirty sock in her mouth. Right in front of her, he kicked Julian in the stomach, again and again. He didn't stop until Julian passed out from the pain. Still not satisfied, Ronan turned his attention back to me. He stroked his chin, looking me up and down. Aurora Sterling, when did you get so pretty? A chill ran down my spine. I had a very bad feeling. 12. Ronan grabbed my chin, chuckling. Instead of being with Sebastian, you should be with me. I'll give you a chance to prove yourself. If you know what's good for you, I promise I'll treat you well from now on. I shut my eyes in terror, biting my lip hard. I'm not a prude. My life is more important than anything, but my body's instinctive reaction was undeniable. I was trembling uncontrollably, my stomach churning. The next second, a loud crash echoed through the silent factory. I instinctively opened my eyes to see a motorcycle crashing through the large iron gate of the abandoned factory. Seeing the motorcycle, Ronan cursed, Shit, I'm dead. He tried to run, but his pants, which were already halfway down his legs, tripped him up. He didn't get more than 2 steps before the person on the motorcycle hit him on the back of the shoulder with a bat, sending him sprawling to the ground, writhing in pain. Ronan started begging for mercy. Brother Seb, spare me, I'll never do it again. The person on the motorcycle took off their helmet. It was Sebastian. Sebastian glanced at me, then walked towards Ronan. You dare touch my person? Ronan scrambled backward in terror. I was wrong. Sebastian ignored him, raised the baseball bat, and brought it down hard between Ronan's legs. Another scream, and Ronan curled up into a ball, passing out from the pain. Even after Sebastian untied me, my body wouldn't stop shaking. Tears flooded my eyes, streaming down my face. Sebastian swept me up into his arms, murmuring, "Aurora Sterling, it's okay now." I wrapped my arms around his neck and buried my face in his chest, crying silently. As I cried, I started calling out his name, over and over again, my voice filled with anguish. "Sebastian, Sebastian." Sebastian let me vent, letting my tears and snot soak his shirt. He patiently responded each time, "I'm here, I'm here." Chapter 6. A New Bloom 13. The emergency contact on my watch was Sebastian. When I triggered the alert, the watch automatically sent my location and a danger warning to him. Thanks to Sebastian's timely arrival, my life wasn't ruined by Ronan Cross a second time. Penelope suffered a miscarriage due to the shock, and Julian, in addition to being disfigured by the acid, also had several ribs broken by Ronan's kicks. Just like in my previous life, Ronan went to prison. The difference was, last time he was out in just 5 years. This time, he was sentenced to life. I had a faint suspicion that Sebastian had something to do with it. I started to become curious about him. But in the short time we spent together at school, I never got to see this other side of him. After thinking it over, I brazenly said, "Your grades could still be better. How about I come over to your place on the weekends to tutor you?" Sebastian propped his chin on his arm, a lazy look on his face. "I live alone. Aren't you afraid I'll try something?" His teasing made my face flush. I asked in a small voice, "Are your parents not home?" He said calmly, "My parents died in a car crash." So that's why the teachers never called his parents. He didn't have any left. I froze, and when I snapped out of it, I quickly apologized. But Sebastian just smiled, unconcerned. During lunch break, I saw Mrs. Thorne, who was at school to process Julian's leave of absence. Julian's injuries were severe. He would need at least 6 months to recover before he could return to school. So, Mrs. Thorne decided to have him take a year off and repeat his senior year. I didn't feel any guilt towards Julian. After all, he had chosen his own path. But seeing Mrs. Thorne's haggard face, I felt an indescribable sadness and a pang of guilt. Ultimately, it was because of me that Julian had met Penelope. I was hesitating, unsure of what to say, when Mrs. Thorne spoke. "Sweetheart, don't blame yourself. Julian was blind and chose the wrong person. It's not your fault." Her words stopped my spiraling thoughts. I bit my lip. "Godmother, how did you find out about them?" Mr. and Mrs. Thorne had always wanted a daughter but ended up with a son. They had adored me since I was born and eventually made me their goddaughter. Mrs. Thorne used to joke, "You should get used to the title now, so it's easier to change it later." But now, she looked exhausted, a far cry from her usual spirited self. "My company recently signed a batch of influencers. Julian went behind my back and used his connections to sneak that Vance girl into the company. I have to admit, the girl has some skills. She built up a following by posting suggestive videos and now has several 100,000 followers. Once she started making some money, she began bullying the new streamers at the company and spreading rumors that she was pregnant with Julian's child and would soon marry into a wealthy family. That's when I realized Penelope had been the one to leak the story herself. When Mrs. Thorne heard the rumors at her company, she naturally went to question Julian. But Julian thought I was the one who had snitched to his mother and showed up at my apartment late at night to confront me. Mrs. Thorne sighed. In the end, I failed to raise Julian properly. I let him become the jerk he is today. I hesitated. The baby in Penelope's belly? I know, the baby has nothing to do with Julian. Mrs. Thorne patted my shoulder. He is him, and you are you. Even if we can't be family by marriage, you will always be my precious girl. Before she left, she pressed a bank card into my hand. The pin is your birthday. Sweetheart, you've lost weight recently. Buy yourself something nice to eat. 14. After the kidnapping, Penelope played the victim card and posted 5 or 6 viral videos, her follower count soaring to over 1 million. Mrs. Thorne, of course, wouldn't keep such a troublemaker in her company. She kicked Penelope out and reclaimed the account. Penelope took the contract termination fee and immediately found a new patron, the owner of another influencer incubator company. She successfully rebranded herself from a sultry streamer to an innocent, pure girl. She gained countless new fans by stirring up dating rumors with a male influencer at her new company. The more popular Penelope became online, the more negative comments she received. She was the school beauty at Northwood High, but online, surrounded by countless other beautiful influencers, she didn't stand out as much. She started to feel that her eyelids weren't wide enough, her nose wasn't small and delicate enough, her lips weren't full enough, and the curve of her chin wasn't refined enough. Penelope borrowed a large sum of money from her patron and flew to Beverly Hills for plastic surgery. My life, on the other hand, continued its monotonous, mechanical routine, but it wasn't dull. Even though Ronan was in prison, Sebastian kept his promise and walked me to my apartment complex every Friday. Before he left, he handed me a slip of paper. "What's this?" "My address," Sebastian said. It took me a moment to realize what he meant. I had mentioned tutoring him on weekends. Sebastian hadn't agreed at the time, and I had forgotten about it over the next few days. I was surprised he still remembered. For some reason, my heart hadn't slowed down since I got that piece of paper. I couldn't fall asleep as easily as I used to. Whenever I closed my eyes, images of Sebastian flashed through my mind. Penelope had been voted the official school beauty on the school's online forums, but there was no official school stud. That was because the most handsome guy in school was Sebastian, and no one on the forums dared to put his name up for a vote. In the end, the title was reluctantly given to Julian Thorne. Before, my world had revolved around Julian, and I had never paid any attention to Sebastian's looks. But since becoming his deskmate, I spent more than 10 hours a day facing him. His image had taken root in my heart. Now, I could see him not only when my eyes were open, but also when they were closed. I tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. It wasn't until the sky began to lighten that I finally drifted off. I hadn't slept long before my alarm went off. Despite the lack of sleep, I didn't feel tired. In fact, I was buzzing with excitement. I rummaged through my closet, looking for the right outfit, and studied my reflection in the mirror. I tried on several outfits but felt something was missing. I ended up taking pictures of each one and sending them to my dorm group chat. The dorms at Northwood High had 6 people to a room. I had quickly become friends with 2 of my roommates, and we had a group chat for the 3 of us. Chloe Jennings replied almost instantly, "What's up with our study fiend today? Playing dress-up this early in the morning instead of memorizing vocabulary?" Megan Quinn quickly followed up with a tease, "Isn't it obvious?" "Rory's second spring has arrived, haha." I quickly replied, "What second spring? Don't be ridiculous. I'm going to tutor Sebastian. I can't exactly show up in my school uniform." The moment I sent that message, Chloe started a voice call. "What? You're going to see Sebastian?" she gasped. "Are you two actually dating? Do you like him? Don't be ridiculous. The only thing that matters in senior year is studying." I tried to sound as calm as possible, but my heart was pounding like crazy, as if she had hit a nerve. Chloe sighed in resignation. Fine, you're a study fiend. All you care about is school. But don't say I didn't warn you. Sebastian's family is really rich. His dad is the richest man in Northwood, the chairman of the Shengshi Group." I had a feeling Sebastian's family was wealthy, but hadn't he said his parents were dead? Chapter 7, Warming Up 15. With my questions in mind, I followed the address on the note and found Sebastian's place. It was the most luxurious apartment building in the city. The residents were all rich and famous. I'd heard that several celebrities owned apartments here. Sebastian lived in Building A on the 13th floor. I stood at his door, hesitated for a moment, and then rang the bell. He opened the door quickly. He seemed to have just showered, wearing a bathrobe with his hair still wet. The belt was tied loosely around his waist. When he moved, the robe fell open slightly, revealing a glimpse of his well-defined abs. I glanced at him, and my cheeks instantly turned red. I never knew that not only was Sebastian handsome, but he also had such a great body. "Come in, what are you thinking about?" I quickly looked down and entered his apartment, my face burning. Just as Sebastian had said, he lived alone. The apartment had a minimalist design with a black, white, and gray color scheme. There was very little furniture, but the space was huge. It looked empty and gave off a strange sense of loneliness. Sebastian took a new pair of pink slippers from a built-in shoe rack and placed them in front of me. "Have you had breakfast?" I was about to politely say yes when my stomach let out a loud grumble. I covered my stomach in embarrassment. Sebastian chuckled, went to the kitchen, and brought out sandwiches and hot milk. "Just made them. Eat up." This was the first time we had eaten together. I took a bite of the sandwich and snuck a peek at him from the corner of my eye. Although my family wasn't wealthy, thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Thorne, I was used to being around rich people. Sebastian was completely different from the other rich kids I knew. He wasn't arrogant, but he exuded an intimidating coldness. But to say he was completely cold didn't feel right either. When I was afraid of Ronan's revenge and asked him to walk me home on Fridays, he could have just ignored me. But not only did Sebastian agree, he also came to my rescue when I was in danger. I couldn't find the right words to describe him. Every adjective seemed to contradict another. As I was thinking, the words Sebastian had said to Ronan when he came to save me echoed in my mind. "You dare touch my person?" I blushed from my face to my neck. To keep him from noticing, I could only lower my head even further. Sebastian finished his food quickly and went to change into some loose, casual clothes. I hurried to finish my breakfast and took out the study materials I had prepared. We sat on the carpet around the coffee table. The moment I took out my textbooks, the blush on my face faded, and I became like a professional tutor, explaining the tricky problems to him. I was completely immersed in the process, talking until my throat was dry. "Does that make sense?" Sebastian didn't answer. I instinctively looked up at him, only to find his gaze fixed on me. The blush that had just faded came rushing back, coloring my cheeks like a sunset. I didn't know if it was out of shyness or annoyance. "What are you looking at? Have you been listening to me at all?" Sebastian propped himself up on his arms and leaned towards me. In the moment I froze, he was already close. My breath hitched, my heart raced, and I leaned back instinctively. But the further I moved back, the closer Sebastian got. Finally, my back was against the sofa, with nowhere left to retreat. Sebastian stopped. We looked at each other, just like in a scene from a rom-com. He reached out his hand. The next step would probably be to cup the back of my head and kiss me. My usually sharp mind went blank. Acting on instinct, I closed my eyes. The next second, I heard a low chuckle. Sebastian reached out and brushed away a strand of hair stuck to the corner of my mouth. He whispered, "Aurora Sterling, why did you close your eyes?" I opened my eyes in a panic, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. 16. I discovered another one of Sebastian's secrets. When he recited my problem-solving steps perfectly, I realized something was off. He clearly hadn't been paying attention. I couldn't help but think about how he usually turned in blank exams and never listened in class. Yet his grades on the mock exams had improved so drastically that he was moved from the regular class to the second-tier one. Could it be that Sebastian was actually a high IQ genius? To test my theory, I pulled out a difficult problem from last year's math competition and deliberately explained the solution incorrectly. Sure enough, he corrected my mistake and even offered a simpler way to solve it. I threw the paper down on the coffee table and frowned. "Sebastian, you've been lying to me?" He was no slacker. He was probably even better at academics than I was. Sebastian rested his chin on his hand. Lying about what? I was about to scold him, but then I realized he had never actually claimed to be a bad student. I was the one who had insisted on tutoring him. My face flushed. I gathered my papers and packed my bag. "I'm going home." Sebastian blocked my way. "No more tutoring? You're better than me. There's nothing I can teach you." He smiled at that. "Then I'll tutor you. Aren't you participating in the math competition?" Not even my parents knew I had signed up for the math competition, yet Sebastian said it so casually. "How did you know?" Sebastian glanced at the math competition problems spread all over the table. "Is it that hard to guess?" I gave up and handed him my notebook of incorrect problems from the competition. By the end of the day, I realized Sebastian was even smarter than I had imagined. With his abilities, getting into Tsinghua Peking University would be a piece of cake. Sebastian gave me a ride home on his motorcycle. He drove fast, and as we crossed the bridge, I felt a rush of adrenaline, as if I had turned into a bird. I opened my helmet's visor, letting the cold wind whip through my collar and rustle my hair. At some point, my arms had wrapped around his waist. The feeling of letting go was both thrilling and new. The moment the motorcycle stopped and I watched Sebastian ride away, the warm feeling in my chest was replaced by a hollow emptiness. 17. I successfully passed the preliminary round of the math competition and began preparing for the finals. Before heading back to school, my mom asked me to visit Julian in the hospital. This time, she didn't make tea-steeped eggs. Instead, she bought a beautiful fruit basket and a bouquet of flowers wishing him a speedy recovery. Julian's condition was even worse than in my previous life. Not only was his face severely burned, but other parts of his body were also burned to varying degrees, and his vision was affected. When I saw him, he was wrapped in bandages from head to toe, looking like a mummy. Julian became agitated when he saw me. He tried to move but couldn't, only managing a weak whisper, "Where's Penny?" I couldn't believe that even at a time like this, Julian was still obsessed with Penelope. I put down the fruit basket and sat by his bed. "She's your girlfriend. How would I know where she is?" Since Julian had been hospitalized, Penelope hadn't visited him once. Mr. and Mrs. Thorne were busy with their careers and couldn't be with him all the time, so they had hired expensive caregivers to look after him. They had specifically instructed the caregivers not to let Julian have any contact with anything related to Penelope. He couldn't see her or get any news about her, and the longing was driving him crazy. Seeing me now was like a drowning man clutching at a straw. He pleaded, his voice cracking, "Please help me contact Penny." Chapter 8. Cyberbullying. Seeing Julian in such a pathetic state, I found it both sad and laughable. If Penelope had even a shred of genuine affection for him, she wouldn't have abandoned him after he was so badly injured. Still, I dialed Penelope's number for him. The moment the call connected, Penelope's shrill voice came through the phone. "Aurora Sterling, you have the nerve to call me?" I glanced at Julian, who was lying in bed, his eyes wide with anticipation. "Julian is seriously injured. He wants to see you," Penelope scoffed. "What does his injury have to do with me? Did I throw acid on him? He can't even protect his own woman. What a useless waste. And his mother is disgusting. I worked so hard to build that account, and she just took it back. I would never be with an ugly, disgusting monster. If you want to pick up my leftovers, go ahead. You were always so into him anyway." Penelope went on a tirade, like a firecracker, and hung up before Julian could even react. He stared in disbelief, his already cloudy eyes turning vacant. A few minutes later, he struggled to sit up, took the phone with his bandaged hands, and clumsily dialed her number back. This time, the call didn't go through. Penelope had already blocked him. Julian let out a pained, hoarse scream. Looking at him, I saw a reflection of my past self. Except, this time, Ronan wouldn't be getting out of prison to seek revenge on Julian. Julian would be trapped in this broken, hideous body until the day he died. 18. Northwood High held a parent-teacher conference. The parents of the second-tier class filed into the classroom one by one. The students all brought chairs to sit next to their parents. Sebastian was nowhere to be seen. I looked around for him until all the parents were seated. I still hadn't figured out the truth about his parents. It wasn't something I could just ask directly, and I figured that if Sebastian didn't want to talk about it, he must have his reasons. Halfway through the conference, a young woman in high heels and a flashy dress sauntered into the classroom. She took off her sleek sunglasses. "Sorry I'm late. Which one is Sebastian Croft's seat?" The homeroom teacher frowned and had the class president show the woman to her seat. I stared at her for a while, trying to figure out who she was. She bore no resemblance to Sebastian. Her face was well-maintained, and she looked no older than 30. The woman quickly noticed my scrutinizing gaze. She looked over at me, her eyes raking over me from head to toe. A flash of disdain and contempt crossed her face before she haughtily looked away. When the teacher finished her speech and it was time for parents to ask questions, the woman was the first to stand up. "Teacher, how are Sebastian's grades recently?" The teacher praised him. "Sebastian has made great progress. He did very well on the mock exams. If he keeps it up, he has a good chance of getting into a top university." The woman, however, didn't look pleased. "How is that possible? Did he cheat?" The teacher patiently explained. "We have very strict rules in the exam room. Cheating is absolutely impossible." She snorted. "You can't be sure. With all the high-tech gadgets these days, if someone really wants to cheat, you can't stop them." I couldn't take it anymore and spoke up. "Ma'am, even the police need evidence to arrest someone. You can't just accuse people like that." Hearing the word "ma'am," the woman's eye twitched. Seeing me defend Sebastian, she sneered and pointed at me. "Why are you so defensive? Do you have a crush on Sebastian?" My mother was fiercely protective. She grabbed the woman's finger and bent it back. "Who are you pointing at?" the woman shrieked in pain, and the room descended into chaos. She continued to curse. Like mother, like daughter, you barbaric people make me sick. Sebastian will never like your daughter, you filthy rat. As she yelled, she tried to grab my mother's hair. Her hand had just shot out when it was intercepted by another arm. Sebastian grabbed the woman's hand, his expression colder than I had ever seen. Who let you come here? Get out. 19. After the parent-teacher conference, I didn't see Sebastian for a long time. He had taken an indefinite leave of absence. I wanted to contact him, but I couldn't think of a reason. Every day, I looked at the empty seat next to me, a part of my heart feeling empty too. I found it hard to concentrate in class, but with the heavy workload, I forced myself to readjust and focus on preparing for my exams. The day before the math competition finals, which was a weekend, I was at home doing practice tests when Chloe and Megan both sent me messages at almost the same time. Chloe, focus on your exam for the next 2 days. Don't go online or play on your phone. Good luck, sweetie. I know you'll do great. Megan, Rory, Penelope posted about you online. You need to see this. I frowned and clicked on the link Megan had sent. It was a TikTok video with over 1 million likes and hundreds of thousands of comments and shares. In the video, a woman with a chin as sharp as a needle, her face whitened and her eyes enlarged by filters, was crying her heart out. She claimed that she had been betrayed by her best friend, which led to her being abused by her ex-boyfriend, suffering a miscarriage, and being forced to drop out of high school in her senior year, ruining her life. The top comment was from a user claiming to be an insider. The poster and I went to the same high school. Everything she said is true. Her best friend's name is Az, and she's a total pick-me girl, always trying to seduce guys. Reply to top comment, that initial. It can't be who I think it is, right? Reply to reply, wow, you all know this AS, she must be pretty infamous at school. Reply to reply, let's see if we're on the same page. The one in the second-tier class at Northwood High. Reply to reply, that girl is something else. She looks all innocent, but she's actually really wild. Photo.jpg reply to reply, she's already living with a guy, she's also a homewrecker for money. I clicked on the photo in the 5th comment. It was a series of candid shots. In the blurry photo, I was walking with a short-haired boy, my arm linked with theirs, looking very intimate. I zoomed in and saw that the boy in the photo was actually Megan. She usually dressed in a tomboy style, with a mullet hairstyle, a red plaid shirt, gray sweatpants, and the latest Air Jordans. The next 3 photos were just as ridiculous. One was of my uncle driving me to school, another was of me and my cousin grocery shopping, and the last one was of me taking off my helmet as I got off Sebastian's motorcycle. Penelope had really gone all out. Not only had she hired a private investigator to take these photos, but she had also spent a lot of money on paid trolls to boost the post. The top comment was clearly written by one of her trolls. But with them leading the charge, many clueless onlookers followed suit. I scrolled down, and it was an endless stream of insults directed at me. The comments were vile, cursing me and my entire family. Less than 24 hours after the video was posted, someone had already doxed me, leaking all my personal information online. Chapter 9. The math competition. My hand tightened around my phone as I clicked on Penelope's livestream. Her plastic surgery had transformed her once sweet face into a sharp, unnatural one. Her face was deathly pale, the puffy under-eye bags were alarmingly large, and her false eyelashes looked like spider legs. She exuded a cheap, influencer vibe. With 3 million followers, she was already selling products on her livestream. Comments flashed across the screen, and I heard Penelope's arrogant voice. My green tea ex-bestie is a great student, but what's the use? When she graduates, she'll just end up working for me. The money I make from selling products now is more than she could ever earn in this life, the next life, and the life after that combined. 20. We were living in the age of the internet. Shortly after Penelope's slanderous video went viral, people used the doxed information to find my home. That afternoon, as I was packing my bag to head back to school, I opened my door to find rotten eggs splattered all over the wall. My security door was covered in red spray paint, with vicious curses scrawled across it. Homewrecker, drop dead, go to hell, you bitch. I calmly took a picture of the scene, sent a message to my mom, and went to school as planned. Penelope had timed her attack perfectly, posting the video the day before my math competition to mess with my head. If I let her get to me, I would be the real fool. But I had underestimated the power of the internet. When I got to my dorm room, I found my bedsheets and quilt soaked in red ink and a dead rat hidden under my pillow. Chloe stomped her foot in anger. Which bastard did this? The other roommates were silent, looking at me with strange expressions. Furious, Chloe went to find the dorm supervisor to check the hallway security footage. Megan, seeing my silence, patted her own bed. "You can sleep in my bed tonight." I shook my head. "No, it's fine. I'll get a room at the Orchid Hotel near the exam center." Megan insisted on coming with me, worried about me being alone. So, I had to use my ID to book an outrageously expensive room with 2 beds. Before I went to sleep, I received a text from Sebastian. "Where are you?" I rubbed my eyes, making sure I wasn't seeing things. This was the first time Sebastian had contacted me in over 2 weeks. I stared at the message for nearly 3 minutes before quickly typing out the name of the hotel. I assumed Sebastian had seen the online rumors about me and was checking in. I waited for his next message, but nothing came. 10 minutes later, my eyes were sore from staring at my phone when the screen finally lit up again. It was a call from Sebastian. His voice was as lazy as ever. "Come out." I was stunned. "What?" "I'm at the door." I scrambled out of bed and ran to the door in my slippers. He looked the same as always. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, with a lollipop stick dangling from his lips. Afraid that Megan would see him, I grabbed his arm and pulled him down the hall. "How did you know which room I was in?" "This hotel is owned by my family." I wasn't too surprised. Chloe had already given me a heads up. Even though I already had an idea, I still asked, "Why did you come all this way so late at night?" Sebastian stopped walking. "Aurora Sterling, good luck on your exam tomorrow." I turned to look at him. He was usually so laid back. This was the first time I had seen him so serious. His voice was so gentle, as if he could see through my tough exterior. My eyes welled up with tears, but I didn't want him to see me so vulnerable, so I stubbornly turned away. Sebastian placed his hand on my head and gently ruffled my hair. The next second, there was a lollipop in my mouth. I stood there, stunned for a moment, then slowly looked up at him. The lollipop that had been in his mouth was gone. A faint sweetness bloomed on my tongue. Grape, so the lollipops he ate were grape-flavored. 21. Sebastian booked the room next to mine. The next morning, he and Megan walked me to the exam center. Maybe it was because Sebastian was there, but Megan seemed tense and unnatural. I made an excuse for her. "You have classes to get to, you should head back to school." Megan looked relieved. "Good luck on your exam. Don't be too nervous." After watching her leave, I reached into the inner pocket of my backpack to get my exam admission ticket. I searched and searched, but the pocket was empty. I frowned and started rummaging through my entire bag. I'm usually a very careful person. I had checked for the ticket before going to bed last night and again this morning before leaving the hotel. It was definitely in my bag when I left. Sebastian noticed my change in expression. "What's wrong?" I bit my lip until it turned white. "My admission ticket is gone." For some reason, I suddenly thought of Megan's strange behavior today. When we both saw Penelope's video online, Chloe tried to hide it from me, worried it would affect my exam. But Megan couldn't wait to tell me I was being cyberbullied. Last night, when my bed was vandalized, she was the one who insisted on staying at the hotel with me. The admission ticket that was in my bag before we left the hotel was now missing. I couldn't think of any other possibility except that Megan had taken it. "Don't panic," Sebastian said. "Do you have a PDF of the ticket saved on your phone?" I nodded. "But the print shops don't usually open until 9. I'll handle it." I had been in a complete panic, but strangely, hearing Sebastian's calm voice, I felt a sense of peace. 10 minutes before the math competition started, someone drove up and delivered my printed admission ticket to the exam center entrance. I made it into the exam room just in the nick of time. When I came out after the exam, Sebastian was still waiting for me. He pulled a bouquet of flowers from behind his back. "Congratulations. My life these past 2 days had been a roller coaster. Amidst the rotten eggs, red paint, dead rats, and ink stains, this bouquet felt especially precious. I wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. "Congratulations for what? What if I didn't do well?" Sebastian smiled. There's no what if for Aurora Sterling. 22. Sebastian walked me back to school, but he didn't go in. I looked at him, feeling a little reluctant to say goodbye. Aren't you coming back with me? I have something to take care of. Sebastian had always been a bit of a mystery to me. I knew I shouldn't pry, but I couldn't help but ask, was that woman at the parent-teacher conference your family? Chapter 10. The reversal. Sebastian fell silent. Just when I thought he wouldn't answer, he said quietly, stepmother. I lied that day. A year ago, only my mom died in the car crash. My dad was lucky and survived. I fell silent too. In just 1 year, Sebastian's father already had a new woman in his life. I finally understood why Sebastian had said both his parents had died. His stepmother seemed like a horrible person. Having a wicked stepmother often meant having a stepfather in spirit too. It was clear that Sebastian and his father didn't have a good relationship. Sebastian broke the silence. My grandfather's birthday is coming up. Do you want to come? I knew that Sebastian and I were just classmates, maybe friends. I had no right to be at his grandfather's birthday gala. That was a world of high society, a world I didn't belong to. But for some reason, I found myself agreeing. When I got back to the dorm, Chloe rushed over. Rory, how did you do on the exam? I glanced at Megan, who was sitting on her bed, engrossed in her phone, and said with a dejected sigh, my admission ticket went missing. I didn't even get to take the exam. My tearful voice finally got Megan's attention. She looked at me with feigned concern. How did that happen? Didn't you check for your ticket before you left? Chloe was on the verge of tears. It's all my fault. I should have called you this morning to remind you, I comforted Chloe. I'm just kidding. The exam went well. She playfully punched my arm, a smile returning to her face. Megan, however, her pupils contracted and she looked dazed for a moment. I smiled at her. Megan, are you disappointed? She froze. No, why would I be disappointed? You helped Penelope take candid photos and spread rumors about me, deliberately trying to mess with my head right before the competition. I counted on my fingers. You were the one who spread my personal information online, threw rotten eggs, and splashed red paint on my front door. You were the one who poured ink on my bed and hid a dead rat under my pillow. And you were the one who stole my admission ticket right before the math competition. I sneered. You did all that for Penelope, only for it to be for nothing. How could you not be disappointed? Chloe's eyes widened in shock. Megan's expression darkened. After a few seconds of silence, she dropped the act. Yes, I did all of it. But do you have any proof? What can you do to me? The security cameras in my apartment complex and the dorm hallway had been damaged. I didn't have any proof before, but now I did. I saved the recording on my phone and couldn't resist asking, why did you help her? Megan answered without hesitation, because I like her. I love Penelope, 23. I figured if this vast world were a novel, Penelope Vance would undoubtedly be the charismatic female lead everyone falls for. Chloe and I had always known Megan was gay, but that didn't stop us from being good friends. I just never knew that Megan had only gotten close to me in the first place because of Penelope, pretending to get along with me. A sense of defeat washed over me. One by one, the people I thought were my friends had stabbed me in the back. In the end, Megan was disciplined by the school. Chloe had somehow found Megan's takeout orders for red ink and a pet mouse. Combined with the recording of my conversation with Megan, the school administration decided to issue her a severe warning and a formal demerit on her record. This demerit, now part of her permanent student file, would follow Megan for the rest of her life. With the intense academic pressure of senior year, I didn't have time to deal with the online rumors. Until the results of the math competition finals were announced, I received an invitation to join the national training team and was also granted guaranteed admission to Tsinghua Peking University. I breathed a sigh of relief. The heavy burden finally lifted from my shoulders. For the rest of the semester, I didn't have to attend classes or take the final college entrance exams. But I still went to school every day as usual and even registered for the exams. I just didn't have to attend evening study sessions and switched from being a boarder back to a day student. Chloe teased me, "Are you really here because you love studying, or is it because you want to see Sebastian every day? Just admit it, you like him." I denied it to her face, but when I was alone, her words echoed in my mind. Do I like Sebastian? I probably do. But after what happened with Julian, I was afraid to touch love again. I was terrified that Sebastian would end up falling for Penelope, just like Julian and Megan had. Even more, I was afraid that my feelings were just one-sided. After the college entrance exams were over, my uncle invited me to his restaurant to celebrate. The restaurant was packed on the weekend, and the staff was swamped. So, I changed into a waitress uniform and started helping out. As I was clearing a table, a familiar female voice came from behind me. Well, if it isn't my green tea ex-bestie. I didn't need to look up to know it was Penelope. She was holding her phone, recording me, the camera practically shoved in my face. What's the point of studying so hard? You still end up working for me? 24. Penelope's sarcastic tone was infuriating. I glanced at her and continued wiping the table. She had just turned 18, but her face was already starting to show signs of collapse, probably from botched plastic surgery. A heavy-set, middle-aged man stood next to Penelope. His hand rested on her butt, and when he spoke, he revealed a set of gold-rimmed teeth. Bad luck. Should we find another place to eat? Penelope giggled coquettishly. No need. I want her to serve me. My uncle's restaurant was a hot pot place, top-notch in terms of decor, quality, and reputation. Penelope had called my uncle over to discuss a partnership, wanting to shoot a video to promote a low-priced group deal. Although she made the low-price deal sound like a fantastic opportunity, my uncle wasn't a fool. A cheap group deal would certainly attract a lot of traffic, but most of these new customers would be coming for the bargain. Once the deal ended, they were unlikely to come back and pay full price. But with her patron backing her, Penelope was being aggressive, basically threatening to post a negative video about the restaurant if my uncle didn't agree. Seeing my uncle in a difficult position, I took the opportunity, while they were negotiating, to snap a few photos of Penelope and her patron getting cozy and sent them to Megan. Megan showed up at the restaurant in no time. She had an extreme personality. If she could help Penelope frame me, she could certainly turn on Penelope out of love turned hate. But she was even crazier than I had imagined. She flipped the hot pot, splashing scalding red oil all over Penelope's leg. Then, right then and there, Megan posted a video on TikTok, accusing Penelope of instigating her to spread rumors and commit crimes. The rumors that had been suppressed for a while resurfaced. But this time, the public opinion was completely different. The netizens who had previously cyberbullied me, without knowing the truth, were now all speaking up for me. Penelope is so manipulative. How could she slander an innocent girl like that? This is terrifying when you think about it. Penelope posted the slanderous video the day before Aurora Sterling's math competition finals. Chapter 11. The birthday gala. Who was spreading those rumors about Aurora Sterling anyway? I go to the same school as her. She got guaranteed admission to Tsinghua Peking University. She's a total genius, let me add. Aurora Sterling was also selected for the national training team. That's some serious cred. No way. Who still believes Penelope? She not only spreads lies and rumors, but also sells counterfeit goods on her live streams. I had an allergic reaction, and my face broke out from the cosmetics she sold. When I tried to get a refund, she just blocked me one. Influencers with no conscience like her should be in jail. OMG, I just thought of something. If Penelope is making so much money from selling fake goods, is she evading taxes? Soon, some proactive netizens reported Penelope to the tax bureau. The investigation revealed a shocking truth. In less than a year, Penelope had earned over $100 million from her live stream sales, but she had paid less than $1 million in taxes. Including back taxes and fines, she owed the government $60 million. If she couldn't pay, she would face prosecution and jail time. Penelope spent millions each month on luxury goods and beauty treatments. On top of that, she had to maintain relationships with various brands, buy new cars and new houses. She had already squandered all her money. Desperate, she somehow thought of Julian Thorne again. 25. The next time I saw Penelope was at Sebastian's grandfather's birthday gala. The party was held on a luxury yacht. She attended with Julian, wearing a long red gown with a train. Perhaps because of the scars left on her leg from the hot pot incident, the dress covered her legs completely, not showing a sliver of skin. Since she couldn't show off her legs, she had the top of the dress modified with a deep V-neck in both the front and back, accentuating her figure. Beside her stood Julian. Although he had undergone several plastic surgeries and skin grafts to repair his face, the traces of the acid burns remained. His pitted and uneven skin made him look like a monster from a horror movie. Julian wore a mask and a baseball cap, revealing only a small patch of raised, hideous skin and his eyes. Mrs. Thorne had recently broken her leg in a car accident, so Julian had taken over the company. When Penelope saw me standing with Sebastian, her eyes burned with intense resentment and jealousy. Because of Sebastian's notoriously cold demeanor, not many girls had pursued him during our 3 years of high school. But back in our freshman year, there were always some clueless girls who were attracted by his looks and would write him love letters. Penelope was one of them. She considered herself exceptionally beautiful, the school's official beauty, and had set her sights on Sebastian the moment she saw him. She dragged me to a custom cake shop where she personally baked chocolate chip cookies and even chose a heart-shaped gift box. Too shy to give it to him herself, she sent me to do it. I reluctantly placed the cookies on Sebastian's desk. He had been throwing away gifts from other girls for half a month straight. But when he glanced at me, he actually accepted the cookies. I was overjoyed and gave him Penelope's contact information, thinking things were settled between them. The next day, Penelope came to me crying, saying that Sebastian had thrown the cookies in the trash right in front of her. Her confession had ended in utter failure. And now, the man who had once rejected her was standing by my side, looking at me with gentle, protective eyes. Julian, with Penelope on his arm, walked straight towards me. He stopped in front of me and handed me an invitation. "Next week is my and Penny's engagement party. You're invited." 26. I saw a flicker of eagerness in Julian's eyes. I couldn't help but wonder if Mrs. Thorne's car accident had something to do with him. Knowing Penelope's personality, with Julian disfigured as he was, she would never agree to marry him unless he had something of significant value to offer. And Julian, without his parents' influence, was just a clueless rich kid. Even as a rich kid, he wouldn't have $60 million to help Penelope pay her taxes, unless he took over his mother's entertainment company. But if Mrs. Thorne were healthy, she would never hand over the company to Julian so early, especially not now that he was involved with Penelope again. Could it really be such a coincidence? Just when Penelope was $60 million in debt, Mrs. Thorne conveniently gets into a car accident and breaks her leg. And conveniently, Julian takes over the company and gets engaged to Penelope. I couldn't imagine, if the car accident really was Julian's doing, how far gone he was. I hesitated to take the invitation. Sebastian, sensing my reluctance, took my arm and led me away. "Grandpa wants to see you. I'll take you to him." Julian and Penelope's gazes were like superglue, stuck on us. I thought Sebastian was just making an excuse to get me out of the situation, but he actually took me to see his grandfather. I had done some research on Sebastian's grandfather before coming. He was the founder of the Shengshi Group. The company's current prominence was largely due to his efforts. Technically, that would make Sebastian a third-generation heir. The day before the party, I had imagined various scenarios, like his grandfather throwing a $5 million check at me, telling me to leave Sebastian. Or him flying into a rage, telling Sebastian that if he didn't break up with me, he would be kicked out of the family. But when I actually met his grandfather, I found that he wasn't the difficult, eccentric old man I had imagined. He had a kind face. Seeing Sebastian with his arm around me, he smiled, his eyes glistening with what looked like tears. "Seb, is this the girl you like?" My heart skipped a beat. I instinctively looked at Sebastian. I thought Sebastian would explain, but not only did he not deny it, he even gave a soft My ears instantly turned red. Mr. Croft handed me a $50 million check. "Good girl, you look like a good girl here, take this. It's a little something from Grandpa for our first meeting." 27. The poor can never understand the world of the rich. Penelope, in order to pay off her $60 million in taxes, was forced to reconcile with and get engaged to Julian. Julian, in order to scrape together that $60 million for her, had gone so far as to harm his own mother and embezzle funds from her company. And Mr. Croft, with a flick of his wrist, handed over a $50 million check as a casual first meeting gift. Penelope was green with envy. Of course, I couldn't accept the check. After all, Sebastian and I were, at most, just friends. I shook my head and refused. "Grandpa, I can't take your money. You've misunderstood our relationship." Mr. Croft looked confused. "Misunderstood? How could I have misunderstood? Isn't your name Aurora Sterling?" I froze and looked at Sebastian. Mr. Croft didn't give him a chance to explain, smiling, "Rory, my Seb has liked you for many years." Chapter 12. A love reciprocated. If it weren't to see you, he wouldn't have even gone to Northwood High. Those two sentences hit me like a bombshell, leaving my mind reeling. A faint blush appeared on the tips of Sebastian's pale ears. We were classmates in kindergarten and elementary school. Thanks to Julian, I had attended an elite private school for kindergarten and elementary. There was an autistic boy in my class back then who was often bullied by the other students. I couldn't stand it and had stepped in to help him a few times. Later in the 3rd grade, my father's job changed, we moved, and I transferred to a public elementary school. I was stunned. "You were that autistic boy?" Sebastian nodded. I never thought such a dramatic, storybook-like redemption arc would happen to me. It was only then that I realized. The reason Sebastian had accepted the cookies back in our freshman year was because he thought I was the one confessing my feelings to him. 28, the gala lasted until well past 10 at night. I had a few cocktails and felt a bit dizzy and nauseous as I stood on the swaying deck. I went out onto the main deck for some fresh air. In a daze, I thought I saw Penelope's figure. A door opened and closed, and when I looked again, she was gone. Penelope had snuck into Sebastian's room. The room was dimly lit. He was changing his clothes when she wrapped her arms around him from behind. The pungent smell of her perfume made Sebastian frown. "Sebastian, I know you like Aurora Sterling, but I'm prettier than her, and I have a better body. What rich man doesn't have a woman on each arm? I'm willing to be your mistress, as long as you'll have me." Penelope seductively flaunted her figure, pressing her curves against Sebastian's back. Sebastian's face turned cold as he pushed her away. "Aren't you Julian Thorne's fiancé?" "No, I was forced. Why would I ever like an ugly, disgusting monster like Julian?" As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. "Sebastian, please, save me. I don't want to marry Julian." The bathroom door clicked open. Julian walked out, repeating her words, "Ugly, disgusting monster? So that's what you think of me. Thanks to Sebastian, I got to hear what you really think." Penelope had gone to great lengths to get away from Julian and had specifically chosen a time when Sebastian and I were apart to approach him. She never imagined that Julian would be hiding in Sebastian's bathroom. Penelope jumped, startled. When she recovered, she looked at Sebastian in disbelief. "You set me up?" Sebastian took off the jacket she had touched and threw it on the floor. "How is this setting you up?" He had never given her any ambiguous signals, but he had seen the jealousy in her eyes whenever she looked at me. Sebastian had guessed that Penelope wouldn't willingly go through with the engagement to Julian, so he had set this trap, deliberately creating an opportunity for her to be alone with him. As expected, she couldn't accept her situation and had come to his room. It wasn't so much that Sebastian had set her up, but that Penelope's own scheming had backfired, leaving her with nothing. Sebastian left the room without a second glance. Penelope tried to leave too, but Julian grabbed her by the hair. Her pinned-up hair came undone, and her scalp burned with pain. Penelope screamed, "What do you think you're doing?" Julian didn't speak. His eyes red, he dragged her out of the room and towards the deck. Penelope stumbled, her high heels flying off, and she twisted her ankle. But Julian didn't slow down for a second, forcefully pulling her towards the edge. "Penny, let's die together, okay? This is how I'm going to look for the rest of my life. Since you find me so disgusting, let's reincarnate together. We'll be together in the next life too, all right?" Penelope tried to scream for help, but Julian's hand clamped around her throat. With 2 splashes, they fell into the sea one after the other. Julian wanted to die. He didn't struggle, dragging Penelope down with him. Within seconds, the surface of the sea was calm again, as if nothing had happened at all. 29. The news online said that Penelope and Julian had committed suicide together for love. Mrs. Thorne didn't shed a single tear. When I went to visit her, she was in her hospital bed, arranging Julian's funeral. I didn't know how to comfort her. All I could say was, "Godmother, I know you're sad. It's okay to cry." But Mrs. Thorne shook her head. "I don't have a son as monstrous as him." She had investigated the cause of her accident and found that Julian had tampered with her car's brakes. If she hadn't been lucky, she would have died in the crash. And Julian had done all this just to take over her company and embezzle funds to support Penelope. Julian was a pathologically obsessed fool, but his parents were clear-headed. Mrs. Thorne was now swamped with cleaning up Julian's mess. She had no time for grief, and she certainly wouldn't grieve for such a demonic son. But no matter what, Julian was their only child. Rory, although you're officially our goddaughter, we've always thought of you as our own daughter. Mrs. Thorne squeezed my hand, her eyes red. From now on, you're the only daughter we have left. If you're willing, after you graduate from college, the company is yours. Before the semester started at Tsinghua Peking University, I went to see Sebastian. I said tentatively, "I'm leaving tomorrow." Sebastian replied. His expression was so nonchalant that I didn't know what to say next. I bit my lip. "I'll probably be very busy after school starts." Sebastian nodded. "Being busy is good. I don't know when we'll see each other again." I gathered my courage and whispered, "Sebastian, I like you." The blare of a car horn drowned out my voice. Sebastian seemed not to have heard me. He looked at me and asked, "What did you say?" Meeting his clear eyes, my face flushed, and I couldn't bring myself to say those words again. I turned to leave. I should go home. Sebastian grabbed my hand and showed me his Tsinghua Peking University acceptance letter with his name printed on it. I stared at him, stunned. He had also chosen Tsinghua Peking University. Sebastian smiled. "Aurora Sterling, I like you too. The end."